What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm with Karlyn Borysenko. Did I say that correctly?
You said it perfectly.
Close enough.
Yeah.
And you do decode the left. You have a big X account, and you're basically decoding the left communist agenda, the radical revolutionaries. I mean, the whole thing. And what we're seeing right now with everything popping off in Portland and Chicago, we're in full swing right now, I think, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to escalate, right? And so, thank you for joining me. If you want, give us a little background about yourself.
Yeah, so I got into this very haphazardly. I'm an industrial organizational psychologist by training, so I used to be one of those people that would go into organizations and teach all the different groups how to communicate well with each other. And unironically, that actually applies very well to analyzing social situations with the far left, because the far left has all these different groups and all this different language and stuff like that. And so it's kind of just like an interesting skill set to use in that regard. But I was an organizational psychologist for a long time, and then around 2020. I ended up getting thrust into the conservative media spotlight where I had an article go viral on the internet. I used to be a Democrat for 20 years. I left the left and all this stuff. And so that kind of thrust me into, being known like for politics and stuff like that. And at the same time, I just started analyzing DEI trainings back in 2020 and 2021 because that was where my interest was. I saw the rise of DEI in HR. I was speaking in the biggest HR conferences in the world where all of a sudden DEI just exploded everywhere out of nowhere. And so I was like, what is going on with this DEI training? And so I had this YouTube channel and I just started watching DEI trainings on my channel, like the full training from start to finish. And I kind of thought we were going to make fun of them, we were going to laugh at them and all this stuff. And we did do that. But in those trainings, the same themes kept coming up over and over again, regardless of who was doing it or where it was occurring or any of that. And in every single training, they were talking about capitalism. And I was like, what is this? This is supposed to be about race or gender or just being nice to each other. Why are they always complaining about capitalism in these DEI trainings and organizations? Well, lo and behold, I just kind of kept watching stuff until I ended up stumbling one day upon the radical revolutionary far left on the internet. And the thing about the far left is they are extremely public in what they're doing, but they do it in very specific locations. And so if you are not out actively looking for the far left, you're probably not even going to know that they exist in like the media zeitgeist. But I just stumbled upon them one day, and it was actually the socialism conference. So there is a whole conference that takes place in person in Chicago called Socialism. And in 2022, they were streaming their conference online, and it just happened to pop up in my recommendations. And I was like, what is this? Like a socialism conference? We have to watch this on my channel. And I was hooked. And the minute I started watching real radical revolutionary socialists, it's like it's a whole new world. And I'm someone that grew up on all sorts of dystopian books. I love dystopian things, and I was like, oh my gosh, there is real life dystopia happening right in front of me right now, and I can watch it on the internet. And so then that was it for me, and I spent the next several years watching socialism almost every day of my life. I've watched almost 5,000 hours of far left training all over the internet. I've gone undercover at their events on multiple occasions, so I actually have experienced the socialism in person, and that's why I do what I do.
Wow. Holy cow. So you were going in there doing the indoctrinating, basically. I mean, at that time, like you were going in there training people how to be really indoctrinated, right?
Well, when I was doing corporate training, I wouldn't say I was doing indoctrinating. I was doing more about like I was teaching people, okay, you have this communication style, so this is how you need to communicate with this person over here. It was more like interpersonal skills training. I was also doing mindfulness training to help people like manage their stress at work and stuff like that. But there were certainly people in the industry that I was in. I fully remember I was at the Society for Human Resources Management conference in like 2018 or 2019 when the entire exhibit hall was taken over by DEI like just like out of nowhere. So there were a lot of people doing that in my field.
So, like, here we are now, and it looks like, obviously Pete Hegseth had that big meeting with the generals, and he's kind of I kind of relate it to like a fishing wire bird's nest in your gear, where now they're trying to untangle everything and reverse everything and put new standards into the military.
Hmm.
And it seems like this is going to be a hard feat to accomplish because people are so indoctrinated on the left, and they're willing to die for their values and and what they believe in. And you were we could say I can say you were a liberal, correct? You
Oh
were a
yeah.
liberal up until 2020.
Yeah, I was very liberal, and now I'm very much not. So
Wow. Okay, stay with me. Stay with me, folks. Get your
yeah.
noble gold. Gold has gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere, and prices keep climbing. More Americans are turning to gold to protect their wealth. But how do you take advantage of it? Well, that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. From rolling over an old 401k into a gold IRA to physical coins and bars delivered to your home, Noble Gold makes it simple, safe, and stress-free. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. And that's noblegoldinvestments.com. Noblegoldinvestments.com, folks. Get on it. All right, man. This is going to be interesting. So I was really looking forward to this podcast you went on with Alpha and Josh not too long ago. They're like, dude, you got to get this girl on here. So you go undercover to some of these things, and I'm going to play some stuff that's happening right now in Portland a little bit, just to give some people some visuals of what's transpiring in these cities. And I've had people on my show, guests come on my show, that talk about that it's been gamed out. Military operations have gamed, military engineers have gamed out that we could have civil unrest in at least 14 cities in the U.S. and then Democratic hellholes for where this is going. Obviously, it'll hit all the cities, but they'll fall back into these 14 cities. Can you confirm that it's that organized, that Antifa and the left are that organized to cause that much havoc in a chaos in America?
Well, it's a tough answer because it's like a yes and no answer. Like, can they cause that much havoc in America? Yes, they can. But is it as organized as people think? Now, how Antifa works is Antifa is a completely decentralized organization. So there is no hierarchy, there is no leadership, there is no one giving marching orders and stuff like that. What there are is, I think, at least 1,000, if not more, Antifa cells all over the country. Anyone can start an Antifa cell, and there's a process for joining it as well. You have to find them, you have to be vetted and stuff like that. But like, so what I think is going to happen is so how the different cells coordinate is they coordinate based on published documents on anarchist websites. And so there are certain websites, like Crime Think is one of the main websites that they publish on, where there'll be a document saying, here is how we are dealing with Trump designating us as a terrorist organization. Or they do all sorts of documents where they're like, here's what's going on, and here's how we're creating chaos at the Broadview facility in Chicago. Or here's how we did this protest in Austin, Texas, and here's the things that we did and what we ran into. So is it coordinated and organized in that there's a hierarchy and there's people telling everyone what to do, and the soldiers kind of fall in line? It's not coordinated like that at all. It's coordinated based on communiques and manifestos and things like that on anarchist websites that are distributed in a way that all of the groups have access to. Yeah, you got Crime Think right there. Oh, they've already got, I haven't even seen this No Kings thing going on yet. So that document that they just published today probably is going to tell us what they're going to be doing at the No
What
Kings
do I
protest
click?
coming
Where do
up.
you want me to go here?
Just click right on it. Just click right on it. It'll
Boom.
tell you. And I haven't read this yet, so this is news to me. So basically, there's a big No Kings protest coming up next week. Now, the No Kings organization is run by Indivisible, which is a progressive organization. So the No Kings protests are not run by Antifa. They're not organized by Antifa, but Antifa is going to piggyback off of the No Kings protest, which is what they're telling us right here. A call for anti-authoritarian blocks at the No Kings protest. And they're basically in this document, and we can't read all of it because it'll probably be really long.
I'll
But
scroll a little bit.
yeah, we can scroll a little bit. What they're going to say is, here is what we recommend doing at the No Kings protest. Now, this is going to get distributed to anarchist groups all over the country because they all read this
Look
website.
at the
And
propaganda here. Fascism
oh
can
yeah.
come to power in the United States. I mean, they're reading this shit going, yeah,
Oh
that
yeah.
shit's
Oh yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, this is a propaganda distribution network for sure. And they have all sorts of other propaganda that they distribute as well. I actually have a collection of it. But what they're saying in this document is, here is how we think we should show up at the No Kings protest, whether that be dressing in black bloc or causing chaos, or they might actually have a section in it where for the last No Kings protest, Antifa actually showed up during the day, but they all dressed in plain clothes and they handed out flyers basically about their ideas. But they didn't have Antifa on the flyers, but that was what they did. It came from this website. And so this is actually how they organize and communicate. It's all through these anarchist websites, and it's all voluntary, and the different Antifa cells, for lack of a better term, are going to decide, do we want to do this or not? And so
Who's
some will show
funding
up
these
and some
guys?
won't. They're entirely self-funded via mutual aid.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, and that's part of actually one of the most dangerous parts of Antifa because, Trump just had this big Antifa meeting yesterday where he was talking about how they're all paid protesters and they're going to cut off the head of the snake and all that. And that's just completely false. It's wrong. There is no George Soros funding for Antifa. They're funded by
Really?
small. Oh yeah, there's none. Yeah, they're very low cost stuff. I mean, listen, I've got a whole stack of Antifa propaganda on my desktop right now. So, like, you want to talk about funding? Do you guys consider like this to be high dollar value funding? Because this is
No.
what they're doing. They're printing their stuff off
Of
off
little
on like
paper like that.
yeah, on
Wow.
like normal printers, and this is what they hand out at their events. And it's like this costs a couple $100. It's like this is not big funding.
So are you pretty big on the internet right now? And you have your own YouTube channel and stuff like that?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
all you do is decode the left. I mean, are you able to
yeah.
still go undercover? Because I will say you do look like a liberal to me. You're
Well,
doing a
there's
good
a
job of
purpose
looking
for
like
that,
one.
isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a method to my madness, isn't it?
But
So
I mean,
yeah,
you're
it's
putting your face out there. People might see you and be like, "Hey, that's an imposter."
Well, I mean that certainly could happen, but it hasn't happened yet. I've been going undercover for years with the far left, and the far left has known who I am for a long time. They've actually knew who I was when the right wasn't paying attention to me, which was kind of funny. But no, I mean, so how do I go undercover at events? Well, I do change my look when I go undercover. So I don't look like this on the internet, like when I show up at events. A lot of events on the far left do still require mask wearing, and so I do have to wear a mask, and so that helps me out just fine. And I mean, the thing is I go to events all over the country and it's not, and there are hundreds of far left events every single week. And so it's like they don't know where I'm going to be.
So here's how I look at all this, right? I see decades, not just years, but decades of
Yeah.
social engineering. Okay, so started off probably really hit full swing in the 60s. I mean, the main objective was to destroy the nuclear family, take the father out of the household, really start chiseling away at the core values of family and ethics and just moral values of the youth, and then they would have the next family and have less values, less morals, less ethics, right? And they did this over time, right? And I remember in the 90s, the hip hop culture, right, came out, and it was all about mistreating women and really not sticking around for your kids, just being a deadbeat dad. I mean, that was really the culture in the 90s, right? That I grew up learning and all that. And it was just destroying and disintegrating the nuclear family. And then you see someone like Charlie Kirk come back on the scene and start promoting the nuclear family and promoting family values, and then boom, he gets shot, he's gone. So this has been social engineering for a very long time to get to this desired result where we're at right now. I believe it's been strategic and designed this way to create kind of this misfit army, this fatherless, you know, stick it to the man type of army. Am I right in saying this? I mean, they're finally at this point now where they kind of don't really have to do much. Kids want to rebel and they want to go against the man, and now the enemy is capitalism. It's Donald Trump. He's the face of it. Am I right in saying that?
I think you're on the right track for sure. I think you got a lot of stuff right in that. The nuclear family is absolutely something that they want to destroy. The reason they want to destroy the nuclear family is they believe the nuclear family is the social reproduction mechanism of capitalism.
Mm.
So how it works is they believe that parents who have kids and raise them in the nuclear family, which they believe is like a monogamous two-person relationship, is what they would consider to be a nuclear family. They raise the kids with capitalist values, and that feeds the capitalist system. And so in order to disrupt capitalism, they have to disrupt the thing that's producing it, which is the family. And this is where all of the attacks on parental rights that we're seeing in schools comes from, because they believe that parental rights over children are a form of private property ownership, because they want all the children raised by the collective. And this has definitely been going on for a long time.
Raised by the school system, the government,
Yep.
and the community.
That's exactly right. And so they I've actually been in presentations with leftists where they talk about how they want kids to have like multiple sets of parents all throughout the community. I've heard them say F parental rights on more than one occasion. They don't believe they should exist.
And that's where the LGBTQ stuff comes in and the whole thing. And I know this is YouTube, so I don't really want to go down that road.
Yeah.
But this has been a process. This has taken a long time to get to where we're at right now. We can agree on that. So what they did was bring in liberalism with communism right under it, like one by like merged together, right? But it was so covert that they had patience to do this.
You know, I'm actually working on a book about the evolution of queer Marxism right now. We can actually talk about this on YouTube, but I'll tell you exactly how I'll talk about this with you. It's not exactly that they combined liberalism and communism. It's that around the 50s there started to be this movement on the left where gay okay, so back in the 50s during the era of McCarthyism, it's actually kind of a funny story. The Communist Party used to ban gay people. They didn't want gay people at all. And so if they found out you were gay and you were in the Communist Party, they would literally kick you out because they thought it was a piece of blackmail that they could use against you. During the McCarthy era, they were very cognizant of this. And so what happened is a group of gay men got together and they formed what's called the 𝗓𝗡cine Society, still around today. And the whole idea of the 𝗓𝗡cine Society is they were gay men that were pissed off that the Communist Party didn't want them. And so they said being gay is an oppressed class. So this is another example of the capitalist class trying to oppress like us as the minority. And that was actually the start of what I call queer Marxism, which is this whole idea that there is an oppressed class based around gender and sexuality and all of this stuff. And that has slowly evolved since the 1950s. One of the seminal moments of it was the Stonewall riot that we saw in New York in 1969, where you had all these gay people that, again, gay people couldn't have bars in New York City because the police would raid them all the time.
Oh.
They rebelled against the police and they basically started like throwing stuff at the police and taking over this inn where they had kind of a makeshift bar and they were really being like, gouged for prices by the mafia and stuff like that. But what gets really interesting is when you start to get into the 80s when you had things like the ACT UP movement that was rebelling against the Reagan administration because they wanted Reagan to talk about the AIDS crisis and Reagan didn't want to do that. So this is where you start to see pushes for universal health care, the idea that we should have free health care for everyone. This is also when you started to see the rise of what's called the queercore movement within the punk community. So all of these crazy ideas that we have around gender right now, around non-binary or men and women not being real, that comes from the punk community. And so
Wow.
yeah, and that's not to say that all punk is queer, obviously, because it's not. There are neo-Nazis in the punk movement as well,
Yeah.
but there was a specific branch that was just evolving within this community where they were I don't know why my hand just raised. They were like playing with gender norms and stuff like that. And then you start to get into the 90s, and then you start to see all these manifestos popping up online where they're talking about being violent and militant. And so
So
the
this really kick-started in the 90s then when they started
yes.
going on upswing. So they knew what they were doing.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so, one of the things I do is I go back and I collect propaganda from these movements across all the decades, so I can see the evolution of it. And it's actually insane to see how the queer movement, I believe queer is not about being gay or trans, it's about a far left political ideology that wants to overthrow the system. It started to get militant and violent in the 90s and the 2000s, and with the rise of the internet, they started to have all these different ways they could communicate with each other. And you just see some of the craziest, like extreme far left writings coming out during that time period.
So let me ask you this. What pushed you to say, I'm walking away from this movement or were you involved with Antifa in any way? Were you at all like part of that? I mean, you were a self-proclaimed liberal, but how far left were you before you decided, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go, you're right now, right?
Yeah,
Are you a Trump supporter? I don't even know.
no, I'm actually much further right than Trump. I
Oh,
I, I don't think
geez.
Trump is not far enough right for me.
Wow.
No, I was a Democrat. I was never a far leftist. I grew up in Vermont, so that's like the home of Bernie Sanders, and so I was just kind of like your average normie Democrat. I watched MSNBC a lot. I subjected my husband to watching MSNBC a lot,
Huh.
and so what woke me up is was in 2019 when all of my friends, many of my friends worked at colleges, and so they all started going crazy at the same time, where they were talking about anti-racist this and anti-racist that. I also am a knitter, like knitting with the yarn. You can see all my stuff behind
Oh
me, and
yeah.
so social justice took over my knitting community, and so they started actually making knitting a political issue. And
Get
I was
out
like,
of here.
what is going on? I just want to look at yarn. That's like all I want to do. And so all of these things kind of started conflating at the same time, and I was like, my own side has gone insane, and
And
that's when
are
I
you
woke up.
seeing a lot more people leave the left?
I
Or
don't
are they
know.
sticking to their guns? Are they kind of like, holding their ground?
I think a lot of them are holding their ground. I think a lot of them, so I mean, like at least the people that I'm around, I occasionally go onto Facebook and interact with my friends from what I call the before times, and they're just as Trump deranged as ever.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this holiday season is going to be very triggering for a lot of people, especially with what happened to Charlie Kirk. Now, the Charlie Kirk thing to me, and I want to just touch on that. What's your thoughts on that? Obviously we know without saying it here, but we obviously know there's way more to the story, and they pinned it on what looks like Antifa, right? They kind of put it on them. Now, I'm not saying there's a lot of questions being raised. Candace Owens is doing a lot of that, but I think we all kind of have suspicions that there was more to the story, and maybe that little country in the Middle East was involved. But it looks like they're trying to start this culture war, right? When you look at it and you say, "Oh, they blamed it on Tyler Robinson." He looks like he kind of has played the patsy. He has a trans girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and now, I mean, it looks like they're stoking the fire, right? With both sides to get really mad. Do you see that happening?
I don't know exactly what happened with that shooting. It's something I honestly haven't just spent a lot of time looking into. So I don't know if that little country in the Middle East was involved. But what I will say emphatically that I'm 100% sure of is that Tyler Robinson was not a member of Antifa. He was not
Oh,
a part of far left organizing. And I said this from the very beginning, and people can go on my YouTube channel and find the video. When they started coming out with this information saying there was trans symbology on the weapons, I saw immediately, and I was like, this is not symbolism that we see on the far left. Now, what it is symbolism that we see in meme culture. And so it's like video games and it's like 4chan and stuff like that. But the things that were on those bullets are not things that I see in far left groups at all. And so while I do think that Tyler Robinson did have more lefty values, you can be on the left and not be a part of far left extremist environments. And so I do not believe he was a member of Antifa. I think that anyone saying he was has never studied Antifa.
interesting. So, what's your thoughts now with all of this that's playing out in Portland, Oregon, Chicago, more cities to come? Trump's getting ahead of the ball. My theory is on this is that the arrests are getting ready to come. So, if they would have rioted and protested, rioted, and burned down buildings for George Floyd, what do you think they're going to do for Hillary? What do you think they're going to do for Obama? Because I believe this is where this is going. So, Trump's putting his troops into places that, all right, let's try to neutralize or quell the coming civil unrest. And then he puts a ban on no cash bail, flag burning. He's setting his pieces or his pawns and his big pieces on the chessboard. He's organizing that right now. So, what's your thoughts on that? And do you agree with him labeling Antifa a terrorist organization?
I am not quite as optimistic about what I'm seeing from the Trump administration. I have read the executive order on Antifa being labeled a terrorist organization, and there is no definition of Antifa in it. So it's kind of like to me, it says that they haven't really labeled any group as a terrorist organization because there's no definition in the executive order around what it
Explain
is.
that. Explain that. What do you
So
mean, no definition?
so many Antifa groups are not called Antifa. They're called something like a distro or an info shop or a collective or a made up name that there's no naming convention for it because Antifa is an entirely decentralized model, right? And so how is Trump going to label someone a terrorist organization when he doesn't even know the names of the organization they're in? A lot of these organizations don't have official membership lists. They don't operate in anything but cash. You can't track these things. You don't even know who's involved. And
And
I
it's
think
also
that
it's also kind of scary, right? Because you're just kind of blanketing anybody who might have opposing views to yours.
Well, what I think that Trump is trying to go after the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And this, I do think, involves that small little country in the Middle East because there is a connection. So the Party for Socialism and Liberation is a revolutionary communist group in America, but they're not Antifa. And Antifa is actually on record on their own website saying they hate the Party for Socialism and Liberation and they won't work with them. So why is Trump trying to go after the Party for Socialism and Liberation? Well, number one, they are highly visible at a lot of these protests, not outside the ICE facilities, but anytime there's a big demonstration like a march on Washington or protests that we see in New York, the Party for Socialism and Liberation is highly visible at these protests. They have big signs that all say the same thing. They wear t-shirts that say the same thing and stuff like that. But the biggest connection that I see between them and what's going on is essentially a couple of months ago there were a couple of Jewish people shot outside the Israeli embassy in Washington D.C. Of course, a horrible tragedy. The person who shot them had a loose connection with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And
Wow.
so that shone a huge spotlight on this one specific leftist group. I've looked at all the documents coming out of the Trump administration. They have nothing to do with Antifa at all, but they all mention the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And so I think what Trump is doing is trying to go after that leftist group because there are CCP funding connections with that group. And but the problem and by the way, I don't care if he goes after the PSL. The PSL can go off the planet for all I care. I think they're a bad group. I don't like them. But we have to acknowledge the PSL is not Antifa and Antifa is not the PSL. So I do think that what Trump is doing right now is a massive bit of misdirection. Even if you look at the report that they were talking about in the Antifa meeting yesterday, there is not a single Antifa group mentioned in that report. But do you know who is mentioned in that report? An awful lot of anti-Israel groups.
Oh my God. Yep, you're right. So this is
Yeah.
kind of covert on Trump's part.
Yeah, I think that this is total misdirection. I don't think they're going after Antifa at all. There have been, I mean, listen, if they really wanted to go after Antifa, just go to the ICE facilities every single night and arrest everyone in Black Bloc. Everyone dressed up like looking like a terrorist, just go arrest them. They're supposed to be a terrorist organization. That's exactly what they're doing. That's how they're behaving as. But yet Trump and his administration have allowed these people to protest night after night after night, terrorizing major American cities, and they're not doing anything about it.
I think there's strategy here. I do. I feel that he's going to let it get out of hand. I mean, I feel like he could sign the Insurrection Act. I think that's where this could be going because we've all been told, my audience knows, military is the only way. I think he's setting his chess pieces in order to, at one point, as this gains out of control, as the fire goes ablaze, he signs the Insurrection Act, and I think that'll be a big sweep to pick up everybody, all the Antifa. What's your thoughts on that?
I genuinely hope he does that because I really do believe that the only way to actually stop Antifa is to arrest them all and put them all in jail. Because the thing of it is Antifa is a militant organization. These people are indoctrinated into a cult. They are not going to stop organizing or doing things that are violent and destructive unless they are taken off the streets and put in jail.
So, what's your thoughts on the governors, the mayors, the politicians that are siding with them, and now the police? Portland police have been siding with them and allowing this kind of unlawlessness, this anarchy. What's your thoughts on that? Because a lot of citizens in Portland, that I've seen interviews where they're like, "Man, we don't want this. We want them to be quiet. We want them to go home. We want our neighborhoods back."
Yeah, I mean, I think it's rather ironic because Antifa wants to abolish the police and defund the police. They don't want the police to exist, and yet the police is protecting them right now. And I think the police think, or the politicians think that they're going to be saved in this regard if they protect Antifa, but they're not. Antifa's coming for all of us. Their goal is to ultimately overthrow the government. They're trying to destabilize our entire society in order to do that. And I think that anyone in any elected position, whether they are on the left or the right, is complicit in helping them if they don't do something to stop them.
So they overthrow the government, they get the anarchy they want, and then what? There's no rule of law. What do they want? What's the end game here?
They want a society without property ownership. They want a society without parental rights, a society without money, a society without banks, a society without the police, a society without prisons. They want to completely control the food supply, which means that we're all going to starve. They want to completely control education so that they can indoctrinate people into whatever ideology they want. They want to completely control healthcare, energy distribution, basically upending every American value that we know and have and transforming us into a Marxist utopia.
So just absolute chaos. Chaos.
Yeah,
What
basically.
kind,
Yeah.
that's insanity. That goes under that to me that's for me that's insane. That's insanity. That's all they're pushing is a community, a society of insanity.
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, that is absolutely true. Oh, by the way, they want to get rid of all gender as well, and so there would be no men and women. It would just be a society of they thems, and so that's going to make it even better, I'm sure.
And you're sure this can make YouTube?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You cover this on your channel, correct?
Yeah, I cover this on my channel 6 days a week.
Everything we talked about here.
Yeah, everything and so much more. Yeah.
So where does the Muslim Brotherhood come into all this? I mean, Antifa. It seems to me like they're going to be using the Antifa, Christian targeting. Are they going to be working together with the CCP and the Muslim Brotherhood?
So Antifa specifically, okay, so Antifa actually rejects the CCP. Antifa that's one of the reasons that Antifa doesn't like the PSL, because the PSL embraces the CCP, whereas Antifa completely rejects them. So I don't think there's a connection there. I actually haven't seen anything regarding the Muslim Brotherhood or any sort of Islamic groups. And again, I pay attention to a lot of leftist groups. It's not something I see come up. That's more of a talking point that I hear coming from the right.
So, what is your mission from here forward? What do you expect to see? Like, you're going to be going undercover more, right? You're going to be going to where? To Portland, Chicago? Where are you going to be going? Just to
Well,
whatever city pops off?
I can't tell you what city I'm going to, but I
Okay.
am going to be going on to a couple of different cities coming up where there is definitely some action. But no, I expect the violence to continue. I expect the protesting to continue. I have seen no indication from the Trump administration that they're actually going to do anything to solve the problem. And so Antifa is not going to stop showing up unless they are forced to stop showing up. So I think things are going to get worse, not better. And listen, I hope I'm wrong about that. I really do. I
Well,
hope
it's
that
going to
Trump
get worse
actually does
before it
fix
gets
the
better. It
problem.
has to, and that's in order
Yeah.
for the clean sweep to come in. From my understanding, now I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know, but we do see this getting worse, getting real
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, I think it's going to get really bad, and I would warn people too. Like if you're watching this, Antifa are very dangerous. So I know a lot of people, it's getting kind of exciting. People want to go down and see what's going on. If you go around any of these far left groups, you really do have to be careful. You have to watch your back, bring other people with you, because these are not mentally well people, many of them, and they will hurt you, and they will not feel badly about it at all.
Wow. So, what do you suggest? So, geez, man. So, what kind of precautions do you take when you come around these people? Do you just kind of keep arm's distance, or do you just say, "I'm one of you, don't worry"? Like, how do you do this?
Well,
What's
so
your
I know
methods here?
I know how to speak their language is the thing. And when you're in leftist groups, they do speak a different language. They speak a different dialect. And so I'm able to communicate with them in their language. So I do have conversations with them, but one of the precautions I do take is I basically go in for maybe a day or two and then I get out and I leave. And so I'm not hanging around these leftist groups all the time where they don't know who I am until I'm already out of the city. And so that's the precaution that I take. I also just like I study these groups all the time. When I'm going into a group, I really make sure I understand who the players are. I make sure I know what's going to go on. I always have people who know where I am and stuff like that. And so I do take a number of precautions, but I do kind of also keep kind of like at arm's length with a lot of them while I'm there, where I'm not giving away information about myself. I know exactly what I want to say to protect myself and all that.
I'm very surprised that they're not, they're from what I've seen, they just have like shields, masks, things of that nature. I'm surprised bullets aren't flying yet.
Well, Antifa usually doesn't carry guns with them, to be honest. Now, it's not that they don't have guns, because they do have guns, but usually what they're trying to do, especially with these protests, they're trying to provoke the cops to open violence on them.
Okay, and what's the age range of the Antifa? I would imagine they're anywhere from 14 to 22, and then maybe the main organizers are in their 30s, maybe that are manipulating and molding these kids' minds. But are they? They're relatively young, right?
Well, the people that you see in Black Bloc that are hanging out outside the ICE facilities all night, yeah, they do tend to be on the younger end. I wouldn't say as young as 14. I haven't seen that young, but certainly like, like 18 to throughout their 20s and maybe sometimes into their 30s. But what I will say is there are a lot of people on the far left that are much older that have been around for a long time that are kind of like leaders in the movement that are mentors for a lot of these people. And so leftists come in all different ages and all different forms. Even people that like Bill Ayers, who was in the Weather Underground back in the 70s, he still goes to leftist and communist events today. Angela Davis still goes to leftist and communist events. And so it really does span the gamut.
It reminds me of my friends. A lot of my friends that served prison time would always tell me, he's like, man, the Woods, the Mexicans, the blacks, the top leaders of all of them, especially my friends that have been in jail for a long time that come out and tell me, they're like, David, it's all the same. They're all working their groups against each other, and the head guys at the very top are cutting deals, and they're manipulating their side. And it's just that's the way it is. That's the way this is ran. I wouldn't be surprised if the neo Nazis and Antifa at the very top are working together to watch this chaos unfold. Right?
I don't know if I would agree with that. Now, I mean, I would would it surprise me if I saw evidence of that?
I'm
Maybe,
talking at the
maybe.
very top.
Well, the thing of it is though is like Antifa for these people, it is part of their identity. It is an innate part of who they are. And so for them working with like a neo-Nazi group would go against everything they believe in. I mean, Antifa doesn't even carry American flags. So it's
Okay, but
like
hold
it
on. I'm
could,
talking about it at the very. See, I'm talking at it from
but
a boxing standpoint. Like Don
yeah.
King promoters, they own both fighters in the fight. I'm saying at the very top, they're kind of like, ha, yes,
I
control this group
to
and this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally know what you're getting at, but the thing with Antifa specifically is they do not have hierarchy. There is no leadership. There's no different levels of it. And that's actually part of how they've built their organization and why it's so difficult to track these people down because there is no leadership
And that'll
structure.
be their demise. They don't. So you're
Yeah,
saying they don't
maybe.
really have that organization?
Well, they have a completely different way that they operate in that they have a non-hierarchical structure where there are no leaders. There is no one calling the shots. So it's not like there are generals and there are soldiers. It's just like everyone is on the same level and they have different ways that they come to consensus around things.
Interesting. Is there any way I can get you back on the program when you're out there, maybe?
Hey, anytime, anytime. I'm happy to
I
come
had
back.
fun with this, man. It's good to peek into the enemy mindset and learn their playbook, because I think this is going to escalate to beyond what people believe. I think this is going to get so bad. I think we could spin into almost civil war. I mean, the atmosphere is already there. We're already. It's so hot right now, and it's so polarized, so divided. I think it's going to get really bad. But I really appreciate you coming on. Where do people find you? How do they look for you?
Yeah, you can find me on my main website is 𝗂𝗑𝗏𝗏.com. You can also find me on Substack at Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. And I stream on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Kick Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we do socialism Saturdays on Saturdays at 6 p.m. And so you can drop by any of those platforms and find me there.
One last question. When you get dressed up to go go undercover, what do you change? What do you do? How do you dress?
Oh, I change my hair. I don't wear
More
makeup.
black makeup? No, no. Okay.
No black makeup. A lot of them don't actually wear makeup. So a lot of people think I like have piercings in. No, I actually like a lot of them don't have piercings. They're not like goth or anything. Like I said, I have masks. I have a very specific set of clothes that I wear that are all kind of like lefty clothes from my Democrat era and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's just like when you're going, like one time I actually just like wore a different pair of glasses than I usually wear that I hadn't worn publicly before, and that seemed to be enough to disguise me. Like when you're going undercover at things, it's like people aren't really looking for me specifically, and so if I just change a couple things here and there, you're not going to recognize me.
Well, good luck on all this, and I'd love to have you back on. Thank you so much for being with me on Nino's Corner TV, folks. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.